With the NBA playoffs coming up, there's more parity in the NBA than we've seen in years. The Western Conference is as close as it's ever been, and there are 11 teams with a record over 500 in the West alone. By this point in the season, though, we've seen who the real contenders are, and today I'll be ranking the top 7 contenders going into the NBA playoffs. Just because a team has a good record throughout the regular season doesn't necessarily mean that they will be a top contender, and just because a team has struggled a little bit more than they're used to throughout the regular season does not mean I'm going to be leaving them off this list entirely. At the number 7 spot, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who sit at 44-29 and 4th place in their conference. And while it looks terrible that they're 13.5 games back of the first place Boston Celtics, they're only 2.5 games back of the second place Milwaukee Bucks. And the Celtics have just been so dominant this year that no one's really going to catch them for that first spot in the East. But I think if there's a team in the East that's going to upset them in the playoffs, I think it could be the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I do have Cleveland above the New York Knicks, who, while the Knicks are above them in the standings, I do think that Cleveland has a better core. And the only reason that they're this far down is because they've dealt with injuries to Darius Garland and to Donovan Mitchell throughout the season. And when Donovan Mitchell gets back, I think they're going to be a tough test in the playoffs to the Bucks and to the Celtics. And I could see both of those series going 7 games, and the Cleveland Cavaliers could easily upset either one of those teams and make a conference finals run or even a championship run, with the East being the lesser of the two conferences this year. And I do really believe in guys like Evan Mobley as well on this team, and I think they have a really solid team that is really playoff ready. At number 6, we have the Dallas Mavericks, who are 43-29, and while they're 6th in the Western Conference, the West has been so tight that they're only 2 games back of the 4th place Clippers and could easily make a run deep into the Western Conference playoffs. I really like how they looked, and I do have to admit that early in the season, I was not their biggest fan. I didn't think that the duo of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic would work out as well as it has, and Kyrie has honestly been playing some of the best basketball of his entire career. As of right now, he's averaging 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists on 49% shooting from the field and 40.7% from the three-point line. And he's actually shooting the second highest three-point percentage of his career since 2014-2015. And the only thing that's really keeping them lower than they could be is their lack of a big man. They don't really have that one dominant big man or even an above average big man to really compete with other teams in the Western Conference, like the Nuggets, for example, or even in a series, if the Lakers make the playoffs, they'll have to play against a guy like Anthony Davis. And that's the one thing kind of holding them back is their lack of big man play. But I think that the duo of Luka and Kyrie could really carry them into a deep playoff run, because at this point in the NBA, if you can just outscore the other team, it doesn't really matter about your defensive ability as much as it used to. At number 5, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, and this may surprise people, but with a 46-26 record, they are second in the Eastern Conference by 10 games, and in the Western Conference, they would literally be a 4 seed. But with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team, I will never count you out of a deep playoff run, especially with Chris Middleton back from injury and other good depth pieces on this squad. I think they could easily make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and even to a championship run, but I think the gap between them and the Cavs is closer than the gap between the Celtics and the Bucks. And going into the season, if you would have told me that, I would have said that you're insane. But I think this team just hasn't gelled the way that they thought they would. And it's unfortunate to see, because I want Dame to be able to reach an NBA Finals and get a championship. But this season, it's looking like the Boston Celtics are running away with the Eastern Conference. At number 4, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who sit 3rd in the West with a 50-22 record, and they're technically tied with the Timberwolves, who have been sliding a little bit as of late. But in Oklahoma City, this team is super young, and no one thought that they were going to be as good as they've been this year. I thought they would be maybe a 6th seed this year and would sneak into the playoffs, but for them to be tied for 2nd in the conference this late in the year and already have 50 wins is insane. And we knew that Shea was going to be good, and he's averaging his typical 30 points, 6 assists on good efficiency, but Jalen Williams has really stepped up as their secondary scorer, averaging 19 points, and him and Shea combined are averaging close to 50 points a game. And then you add in guys like Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort, even Josh Giddey has been solid at times throughout this season. And when you have a guy in Chet Holmgren as the third option offensively and a really good defender who's averaging 16 points a game as well as 8 rebounds, you have a really good team. I could see this team making a deep playoff run. And to be honest, I think this team is very underrated despite being the second place team in the West at times throughout the season, because people count them out due to their youth and lack of experience. And while that will factor in during the playoffs, I think that this team has a good shot of making a deep playoff run and could beat anybody in a 7-game series during the playoffs. At number 3, we have the LA Clippers, who sit at 4th in the Western Conference. And despite their seeding right now, I think this big 3 might be the best big 3 in all of basketball. And you have Kawhi Leonard, who's arguably one of the best players in the entire NBA both ways when he's healthy. And he's played 66 games and hasn't had a real major injury or significant time missed throughout this entire year. And then you have Paul George and James Harden, who Paul George is averaging over 20 points a game and has been very efficient. And then you have James Harden, who settled into that third role offensively and has become a very good facilitator for the Clippers, averaging 8.6 assists per game alongside 17.1 points per game. And he's shooting very efficiently, averaging 39.5% from 3. And in all honesty, this big 3 has looked incredible throughout this season and has gotten some big statement wins against some really good teams all season long. I would not be surprised if this team made a finals run and could easily upset any team in the Western Conference or even in the finals without it being a real upset. At number 2, we have the Boston Celtics, who have been leading the Eastern Conference since basically day 1 of the entire season. They have the best record in the NBA by 6 games and have a .792 win percentage. There's not much more to say than that, and they're 11 games ahead of the Bucks in the East and have looked dominant throughout the NBA season. This team has 4 guys that could genuinely be all-stars and all-NBA type players and have 2 more quality starters in Derek White and Al Horford. This team is so unbelievably stacked that they will probably cruise through the Eastern Conference, and I wouldn't be surprised if they took maybe 13 to 14 games and went 12-2 in the Eastern Conference playoffs going to the NBA Finals. Anyone is on upset alert, and this team has underperformed in the playoffs before, but I think that Jason Tatum is an MVP candidate, and there's multiple great players on this team, and this team looks a lot better than they have in previous seasons. They're honestly my Eastern Conference favorite by a landslide, which is not that hot of a take in all honesty. And finally, at number 1, we have the Denver Nuggets, who have come back from being at one point the 4 seed and are now the number 1 seed in the entire Western Conference with a 51-22 record and a .699 win percentage. This team is the best team in the West and have consistently had big wins throughout this entire season. And last year, they won it all despite not many people believing that they actually would get it done. And I think that Jokic is by far the MVP this year, with him just being his normal dominant self, triple-double after triple-double. And at this point, his dominance is so expected that I think we kind of gloss over how good he's actually been all season. And the Nuggets are coming off a season where obviously they won the NBA championship, and until they are dismantled as the NBA champions, you cannot tell me that they aren't leading the pack in terms of NBA favorites and NBA title contenders. This team is still the number 1 team in the Western Conference, despite the West being way harder than it was even last year. So I still do believe that until the Nuggets are knocked off as the best team in the league, they are the team to beat in the entire NBA. And I would not be surprised to see them go for back-to-back championships this season. Anyways, thank you for watching. God bless you all. I hope you have an amazing day. Make sure to subscribe to the channels. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of April. God bless.